So my name is Bill Georges. I'm a tower from Saginaw, Michigan. I've been in the towing business about 25 years. John, you want to get them info? I was president of the Michigan Association for 18 years. I've been president of TRA. I write and teach for Tow Times and a couple other organizations, and just been really active and involved in the industry. When TRA first started getting involved with the Federal Highway Administration, the first project we did was driver certification. The second project we did was the TIM Tow Guide, which is Traffic Incident Management Tow Operator Work Plan. That's going through a revision and rewrite right now, and that'll be coming out early next year. And yeah, why don't you just stay right there, and then you can pass them out. Somebody's coming in the back too. And then, so there's a lot of focus right now on quick clearance and safety for tow operators. And we're going to talk a lot about safe operations and what's going on out on the roadway and what you can do to improve safety in your company. And what we're going to talk about really quickly is, how to have a safety meeting. In the first couple of pages that you've got, the first one, just says safety meeting planning. I've got a regular seminar that we do on doing a full safety meeting and how and what you should do to set it up. And I didn't want to redo that here because I've done it a couple times or similar in here. So we've got a little different twist. We're going to talk about what you need to do at a safety meeting, and then we're actually going to go through a whole hour-long, actual safety type program. And if you want the program, I will be glad to email you a PDF or the PowerPoint of the program. So to set up a safety meeting at your company, the first thing you need to do is set a date, a time, and a location. If you're a small company and there's only 2 or 3 people, just get everybody together, huddle them up, and you can talk. Talk around the dispatch desk or talk, but you want everybody involved. You want to have everybody involved. If you're a bigger company, set multiple sessions. If you've got 3 shifts, if you've got larger groups of people, or you need to break it up and keep people on the road, do multiple meetings. But take good notes so you can cover the same information. Select the topic or topics. The second sheet, there's a list of about 15 or 20 topics. Topics can be on anything. Anything safety related. There's so much information out there. Any sort of incident or damage or workers' comp problem or injury is a topic for a safety meeting. And, these are just some suggestions. Come on in, guys. That's not church. You don't have to sit in back. Come on, George. It's okay. We allow Baptists in. Why are you laughing? We allow Methodists, too. We know there's Methodists to your madness. All right. Attendance is mandatory at a safety meeting. And not just for your drivers, but for your dispatchers. And your call takers, if you have separate call takers and dispatchers. And the reason it's mandatory for everybody is sometimes a call taker is going to get a bit of information on a call that if it's properly relayed to the dispatcher, and that's properly relayed to the driver, can prevent incidents and injury. The direction of vehicles traveling on an interstate. Are they before or after a ramp? Do we have to try to turn around on the interstate? Do we have to break a tractor trailer apart? All right? Is it a vehicle that we've had problems towing in the past? Is it a vehicle that there's a bulletin on that we shouldn't tow or should be flatbedded? Is it a flat tire and it's on the front of a car or the back of a car? Those types of information pieces, those little tidbits, can make the difference between making a call go smoothly and seamlessly or becoming a problem out on the interstate where you might have an extra car or an extra truck out there or the wrong truck sent out. And now you just complicate it and make the scene more difficult. So you want everybody involved so everybody understands the procedures and what you're trying to go through. Utilize employee resources. And what I mean by that is oftentimes if you see a damage occur or something's happening in your company, maybe it's a detour. Maybe it's a road issue. Maybe it's a pothole and the driver went through and busted a wheel or a ball joint or something. And, share that information freely. If we see, we've got a couple areas around us where we see regular problems when it rains. We know to avoid those areas. All right? Our customers don't. So we're ready when it happens. We get a couple guys in dive suits and we go pull cars out of the water because they just continue to drive in. But we're making sure that we're taking alternate routes when that happens. All right? Same way if there's a recurring type of an event. If you're around a college town, you always, you got a football game coming up. And you know what traffic's like. Use those as safety meetings, how to plan and run around those types of incidents. Use your insurance company and your towing association. Your insurance company is going to have loss statistics both for workers' comp and for liability claims. One of the biggest claims and one of the biggest resources you can use is your dealers. So if you're towing for Kenworth or you're towing for Pete or Mac or Freightliner, talk to those people. Are there problems that they're seeing with a particular type of vehicle or a transmission or something like that? They can give you helpful hints on those specific vehicles that they service. Same way with your auto dealers. Okay? I have a brand new car, and the other day I had a problem with it. I'm like, I was perplexed. I couldn't make my navigation or my touchscreen thing work in my car. And I go in, and the service manager, he can't figure it out. We go in back, and one of the techs goes, oh yeah, there's a bulletin on it. He takes a little piece of paper and runs it along the face of the nav screen, and there's a little tiny speck of dirt that had got in, and it was pressed between the nav screen and the frame, and all it did was it kept pressure enough on the touchscreen to keep the touchscreen engaged with that piece of dirt. And all he did was swipe with a little piece of paper, and the touchscreen started to work. The service manager wanted to keep my car for 3 days and order a new nav screen. All right? This guy fixed it in 2 seconds because he knew. So use resources, whether they're your employees, other employees, your insurance company, or things from your towing association. In Michigan, we have 8 meetings a year for general members, and at every meeting we try to have something, for the good of the members, good of the association, something educational or safety related. Prepare a handout or training materials. Those hard copies that you have on cardstock, make as many copies as you want. Office Max will make hard copies for 50, 60 cents a piece. On that heavy cardstock, you can take them. I've got them in a pouch here that I keep my masters in a pouch. You can keep a good set in a pouch, and then, or give them to your drivers in a pouch. There's great information on those, and, copy them off. If you have other things, again, from an insurance company, maybe it's going to be out of a tow manual. Maybe it's out of the owner's manual of a vehicle. Make copies and give your drivers or employees something to take away for a reference. Next, big thing for a safety meeting. Have a sign-in sheet. You want to know who attended. All right? And this goes back for your insurance company later on, or if you have an injury or incident, and OSHA comes in and says, hey, you didn't train your guy how to operate a forklift, and you allowed him to operate a forklift, and he got injured. Okay? Oh, no, wait a minute. Here's his forklift training card, and here's the forklift program he went through. Very, very important. Very, very important. If you operate powered lifts, if you operate scissor lifts, man lifts, move them for customers, load them, unload them, do you realize your drivers have to have a card to operate one of those? Make sure that they have a card. Make sure they've got the right training, and you have a record of that. So have a sign-in sheet and record that information. Always try to start on time. Towers are always running late. We're always 15 minutes late. We're always 5 minutes late. We're always coming in from that last call or getting ready to run on that next one. So try to start on time. Have somebody take good notes, especially if you have multiple meetings. You want to have notes. What was discussed? What kind of questions there were? Does everybody understand everything? And you want to be able to document what you discussed and what you covered there. Practice safety on all levels. I will tell you that every day when I go to work, I wear a bright orange shirt with reflective stripes on it. When I go to a restaurant after work at night and I walk in and I've got my bright orange shirt on, they know who I am and I am there. All right? If I go in there and I have a nice dress shirt on and I don't have my bright orange shirt on, the owner of the restaurant will walk right by me and he'll go, why didn't you bring Bill with you to dinner tonight? And I'm sitting right there. Why? Because he sees me every day with that orange shirt on that we're there. Why? Because we practice safety on all levels. I own the company. I'm hardly ever in a tow truck. But if I get out of my car on a job, or if I get out and I drive a tow truck, I have it on already. So from the top down, everybody is involved in safety. We put a reminder in their paychecks. A lot of times I go to our DMV or Secretary of State, they always have safety things. They have motorcycle safety, seatbelt safety, airbag safety, winter driving tips, bicycle safety. I steal all that stuff from them, and I tell them, I need 48 of these things. The girls will even order them from me if they don't have enough. And I stuff them in their paycheck. So they're always getting a reminder about safety. So review and reinforce, and then save the records of the meetings. That's, again, it goes right to the heart of why we're doing this. We want to make sure our employees have the information. We want them to be safe. We want to protect them, but we also want to protect ourselves. And that's incredibly important. So protecting yourself and protecting your assets. So, what we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to talk about today is how to park to protect yourself and your employees. And this is incredibly important. The t-shirts that everybody gets at the end of the class, all right, move over for a tow truck, it's the law. How many people believe that move over and our efforts like this really makes a difference with the general public? You really think it does? Yeah, I see you shaking your head. No, it doesn't. But it's kind of a feel-good thing for us, and it's an awareness thing. And the more we do it, the better off it's going to be. Does anybody know how many towers have been killed since January of this year operating outside their vehicle, struck by another vehicle? Guesses?
It's 1 week.
How many? 11? How many?
1 week.
1 a week. So far this year, there's been 54 struck by deaths in the United States. It's actually about 1 every 6 days. We get killed at a much higher rate than firemen or policemen. Part of the reason why is we're out there a lot by ourselves. Okay? The tire change, the service call, the disablement tow. We don't have any backup. We don't have a big fire truck. We don't have those red and blue lights. All right? We're out there with maybe a red or amber or whatever we have. We're out there flying solo. So we need to protect ourselves. So we need to park to protect. This is one of our trucks that was struck. He was pulled up to an accident, a loaded vehicle, and another vehicle spun out and struck us. Okay? Smashed in the back of the police car. This one was in Chicago on the interstate in an ice storm. And look how hard that's hit in the rear. All right? And then a fire truck. You know, we're going to show you a picture of what a crash attenuator is. And a crash attenuator is something you put on the road to absorb the energy. You know, when you see a bridge abutment, you see those barrels there. They're full of sand or water to slow a vehicle down. All right? That is about a $600,000 crash attenuator. It protected the people. All right? It protected the scene. But it totaled out the fire truck. This is in Michigan. And what we've got is a vehicle that spun out and went around the police and everybody else and then entered this active collision scene. All right, next. He went right here. See his tire tracks? And it was the white Suburban, or Tahoe. You hit the back button. Okay. This was the vehicle that went around and slammed in here. So he entered, you know, coming down too fast, entered the scene, tried to avoid the ambulance, didn't strike the ambulance, but then hit the vehicles in the scene. Go ahead, next. This is one of our vehicles, and I got the call, and it was late at night, and drunk driver smashed into this vehicle, which we were loading onto a carrier, and drove that up on top of our cab, and then off the back of our bed. Next. Oh, I don't have it on there. And the vehicle was sitting up on a ramp like this. It was actually half loaded on our flatbed. All right? And fortunately, our driver was out of the truck. All right? Another one, fire truck. Look at the damage it did to the car with the parked fire truck. Car weighs 2,500, 2,800 pounds. Fire truck, 32,000. 10-to-1 weight advantage. Who wins? Definitely the fire truck. Next. This happened September 11th, of all days, just a couple of weeks ago. This is one of our trucks. He was backing into a driveway to hook up to a disabled garbage truck, and the drunk driver in the Dodge pickup truck smashed us in the front axle and pushed our front end of our truck over 2.5 feet, snapped the back of the engine block off, and telegraphed enough energy into the back of the frame that it broke the rear suspension towers on the rear ends. So that's how fast the pickup truck was going when it hit our vehicle, which was almost at a near stop. Next. So how do you avoid being struck? Well, you need to be prepared for work. You have to dress appropriately. You have to have the right mindset. You don't want to be too tired. You want to make sure you get your rest. You know, there's a big push across the trucking industry. Better rest, better rest, better rest. In our industry, that's really hard to get. But try to do that for your people. Make sure they're aware of their surroundings. When you get out on the scene, be aware. Is there a curb? Is there a blind curb? Is there ice? Is there a bridge? What do we need to be aware of? We want that situational awareness. Be alert for D drivers. I got a whole thing on the D drivers, and it's really important that we're aware of the D drivers out there. And then park for the incident scene. Depending on what you have, what your breakdown is, and that's where your call taker and dispatch becomes really important. If you know you have a flat tire and the guy already tried to crank his own tire down and his tire won't crank down, it's probably going to be a tow. So don't pull up behind him and then have to re-enter traffic to get around him. Pull right up in front, back up, and be prepared to tow. All right? If you're entering a big scene, all right, fire trucks, police, and everybody else, go all the way around the scene and get back into the shadow. Get way past it and then back up into the area where you're not going to be in the way of the ambulance or fire or police while they're doing their investigation. Or stay way back in a staging area outside so you're not going to bug the traffic and the setup that they already have. Next. So, worker visibility standards. This has been around for quite a few years. All right? OSHA and DOT requires that you have to have appropriate high visibility on. Look at the difference between the guy with the turnout gear on with just a couple of reflective stripes and the guy with the vest with the reflective stripes. The guy on the left is appropriate, the guy on the right isn't. So if you're out there, you need to have a vest on or appropriate reflective wear. It has to pass the ANSI standards. Those are governed by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and Ordinances. That's a federal document. Next. ANSI. ANSI is the American National Standard Institute. They're the ones that set the specifications for how many square inches of yellow or orange material and how many square inches of reflective material there are. Do you realize that my little nephew here, if I put him in a small vest, he's not legal on the highway. Why? Because he has to have enough square inches. And a regular small vest doesn't have enough square inches of material. So he has to have other reflective wear on. Either has to have longer sleeves, pants, or some other reflective on to give them enough square inches. So you want to make sure that if you have a smaller employee, that they have enough square inches, okay? Next. NFPA and OSHA, the National Fire Protection Association, and the Occupational Safety Health Administration. If you have a driver that's struck or a driver that gets injured or killed, they will be paying you a visit. Whether it's your state OSHA or the federal OSHA, they will be there. And they're going to want to see what your policy is, what you have in place, were they properly trained, do they have the equipment that they need to go out and do their job safely. You want to be able to answer yes, 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 and yes, we have that equipment. Next. So, here we have it. Who's affected? Everyone. Every highway worker, tow truck operator, rescue, EMS, fire, law enforcement. And PD is granted a few exemptions. This isn't one of them. What's he doing? He's investigating in a crash scene. He's required to have that on. Now, his requirement is his vest can be shorter so he can get at his guns and handcuffs. All right? That way, if the police or the fireman or the tower gets unruly, he can cuff them. All right? But they can't do this anymore, and we see it all the time. Next. High visibility. Anybody working on or near the roadway must have high visibility clothing on, including your city streets. Why? Because the federal law mandates that for any roadway that receives federal dollars. Do you know that every city road and every county road and every township road receives some sort of federal dollars? That means every road that you're on, you must have high visibility wear on. It must meet the standards. All right, Class 2, which is low speed under 35, and Class 3, 35 or over. The Class 2 garments don't have sleeves. The Class 3 have what they call extremity markings, or something out on the sleeve with the reflective out on the sleeve. And again, limited exceptions for law enforcement. The police didn't want to wear vests. They actually made a video, and it's called "Your Vest Won't Stop This Bullet," because the policemen always wear their bulletproof vests. Well, guess what? A 4,000-pound pickup truck or a 3,000-pound car won't be stopped by a bulletproof vest. And a vest won't stop a motorist. A vest won't stop a stupid driver, all right? Or somebody texting. But hopefully, if you have the appropriate reflective wear and you're situationally aware, you'll be able to avoid those people. It'll at least alert them to your presence out on the road. Next. All right, the D drivers. These are the ones that are out there every day that are injuring and killing tow truck operators. They're drunk, they're drugged, next. They're drowsy and distracted, and lastly, just plain dumb. We were involved in a collision on August 30th, 2011. The lady ran a red light, smashed into our tow truck, and she's 21 years old, and she's never had a driver's license. She just didn't think she needed one, is what she told the police. Now she's suing us for her injuries in the crash. The 3 people that saw her run the red light all say our tow truck had the green light. Well, when you come to the intersection, it's 2 one-way streets. When her light is green, and this one is going from yellow to red, there's a delay of 1.7 seconds where both directions are red before anybody gets a green. So she said that her light was clearly green and going to yellow, and she thought that she had enough time. Well, if that's the case, the yellow was 3 seconds. The double red is 1.7. So she had 4.7 seconds to stop if she was telling the truth. But everybody else that saw her said, no, she just clearly ran the red light, including the person that was on the one-way, headed the same direction that was stopped that she passed by. All right? Those are just plain dumb drivers. All right? And now, it didn't hurt my driver, but it did cost us a tow truck. Next. Now, this is kind of cool. I don't know if you can see. See the lady? She's talking on her phone, and what is she doing? She's gawking. She's rubbernecking. She's not looking at the car ahead of her. This guy isn't looking at this car. So if she jams on her brakes, what's going to happen to this guy? Going to slam right into her. They're not paying attention. What are they doing? They're gawking. They're looking at the incident scene. They're just plain dumb. They're not paying attention. And she's doing both. She's talking on her phone and she's gawking at the scene. Next. These are only Michigan statistics, all right? And the state doesn't do this a lot. We're trying to get them to do it again for us. But what they do is they take their crash statistics and then they break it down. People under the influence of some form of legal medication or prescription, using a cell phone, sick, oh, I got sick at work, I'm driving home and I crashed my car, illegal drugs, drowsy drivers, distracted drivers. And these are the ones that had some alcohol use prior to the crash. Look at this. Look at the numbers. Clearly over half are drunk. The guy that hit my tow truck a couple of weeks ago, he was way drunk. He never even hit the brakes. My truck is lime green with reflective lettering on it and more lights than a Christmas tree. And it has 3 beacons on it that were activated. And he still slammed into my tow truck. Next. All right. Traffic cones don't stop a D driver. If they're distracted, if they're looking at their phone, they're not going to be looking at the cones or a barricade or a barrel or anything else. All right? If they're putting on their makeup or they're drowsy and doing this head bobbing thing, they're not going to stop for a cone. They're going to come right into your accent seat. They're going to stay into that lane that they're in and they're going to plow into the scene. Next. All right. This is a crash attenuator. Remember I said that fire truck was acting as a crash attenuator? When they block the road, they're trying to block an oncoming motorist from hitting. This truck was actually designed to absorb the energy when a vehicle hits it. The truck or van that hit this crash attenuator to absorb the energy hit barrels for 1,500 feet before he smashed into the truck. Think about that. 1,500 feet. See the barrel? This barrel was way back here and he was just plowing the barrels out. Boom, 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 until he smashed into the back of the truck. And he was in a rented U-Haul van. Took the whole side of the van out. U-Haul says, do you think it's fixable? No, no. But that's a crash attenuator. But it won't stop. You know, it'll stop D drivers, all right? And it'll deflect them. But it's not going to fix them. Next. So, street survival skills. Just exiting the truck cab is dangerous. 25% of drivers and trucks are struck within 5 minutes of stopping at an incident scene. Think about that. 25% of incidents occur within the first 5 minutes. Okay? So if you're out there for a couple hours on a big accident, a full quarter of those incidents are going to happen right away. Why? Because there's not enough early warning. There may not be warning around a curve. The bridge still may be icy. There's not, additional support or better traffic control out there. Next. So what can we do? Limit your time and limit your exposure. Get good dispatch information when you respond. Know what you need to do when you get out there. Make sure you're properly dressed and attired and be ready to do the job and get out of there quickly. So limit your time and exposure out on the road. So whenever possible, exit on the protected side of the truck. Now I know my people don't slide their butts across the seat and get out on the passenger side. They never ever do it. All right? Should they? Sometimes yes, especially if it's a very narrow shoulder. Will they? Doubtful. They will exit on the roadside. All right? Before exiting, if you're going to exit on the roadside, check your mirror, open the door, look and listen, and exit only when traffic is clear, and then move immediately into a protected area or a shadow area. Don't stay alongside your vehicle. The other thing is when you're exiting a vehicle, always use two hands. 3-point contact. Foot, hand, hand. Foot, hand, hand. If you've ever tried to step out of a truck and slipped and fell backwards into traffic, and had traffic coming at you 60 or 70 miles laying across the interstate, that's a very terrorizing feeling. Now, I didn't do something that stupid, but what I did do is I ran across 3 lanes of interstate to get a tire that had come off a semi, and here I am rolling this tire across the highway like this, trying to beat the traffic, and I slipped because my leg hit the tire, and I fell right in front of traffic coming down the road. I could have got killed. How stupid of me to risk my life for a junk tire. All right? Dumb. But I was young and stupid. Now I'm just stupid. I'm not young anymore. Next. Assist in protecting your customer. Attempt to move the customer into a safe location or a safer location. That may be in their own vehicle, in a tow truck, but try to move them from the immediate scene. All right? That's very, very important. Try to move a customer into a protected shadow area if possible. We had 2 cases in Michigan. One was way up north where there was a ravine and there was an accident at the bottom of the ravine where the bridge is, and the customer was told multiple times to get in their vehicle, get in their vehicle, get in their vehicle. They didn't get in their vehicle, and when the other vehicle that came down the road and smashed into their vehicle and struck them and broke both their legs, all right, then they wanted to sue the tower because the tower didn't protect them. But the tower told them no less than 5 times to get in their vehicle. Get in your vehicle, put your seatbelt on. Okay? We had a situation in Detroit, very similar. Guy was getting a tire change on Detroit, Core Freeway. The tower was up on the surface road and carried his jack and tools down to the car because he couldn't move back around because of traffic. The customer was told to get in their vehicle and sit in their vehicle. The customer was playing in their trunk, moving stuff around, situating stuff, and a vehicle came and slammed into the back of the car and broke and severed both of the customer's legs. Again, who are they suing? The tow operator for failure to protect the customer. Now, it becomes a level of what control do you have over another adult? You don't. But again, tell them. Get into the vehicle, put your seatbelt on, get over the guardrail, get into a safe spot. Next. All right. Never turn your back on moving traffic. Never turn your back on moving traffic. That's a perfect opportunity for a D driver to take advantage of you. So don't turn your back on traffic. Next. What's he doing again? He's sweeping, and what is that? That's an active traffic lane outside the cones. Firemen are fun, police officers are fun to take pictures of because a lot of times they're doing dumb things. We do that too, but not quite as often because there's not as many of us on the scene. But there's a lot of these guys, so they're fun to take pictures of. Next. The most dangerous times. When you first arrive on the scene, in the first few minutes of the scene, when you're setting up initial traffic control. If you're setting up cones or barricades or early warning, that's a time when people get struck. And taking down temporary traffic control. That's what the TTC is, temporary traffic control devices. So when you're clearing the scene, it's as dangerous as when you're setting up. And always have an escape route. You know, if you're setting up cones and you're walking toward traffic, always say, which way am I going to go? If the traffic's coming at me, am I going left or am I going right? Am I going left or am I going right? Is there a wall? Is there a guardrail? Can I dive over something? How can I avoid getting myself in that position? Next. All right. The big change for everybody is traffic control zones, all right, and traffic incidents are all work zones. And how that affects us is 6I of MUTCD says what we have to do in work zones. And as an employer, we have an obligation to try to make those work zones as safe as possible. Police and fire have that same obligation for their employees to make it as safe as possible. So a traffic incident zone is also a work zone for traffic control purposes. Next. So a traffic incident is defined as any road occurrence, natural disaster, or other unplanned event that affects or impedes the normal flow of traffic. It could be as simple as a pothole. It could be a piece of debris in the road. A basketball game that's got an extra 50,000 cars coming to your town. All right? It could be a flood. It could be a rainstorm, snowstorm, freezing rain. Next. All right. So when we operate on one of these work zones and in one of these work zones, we have to establish some form of temporary traffic control. And we'll talk about the difference between what traffic control is and warning and directional control is, all right? So we've got several different types of incidents. So 6I says, within 15 minutes when you arrive on a scene, now, how many times are we on a scene for 15 minutes or less? Quite a few. You go and you know you got a tow, you're in and out, you hook up, and you get off the highway. All right? Get out of the roadway. Clear the scene. Move quickly, in and out. But if it looks like it's going to be longer than that, within 15 minutes, you need to estimate the magnitude of the incident. How big is this going to be? All right? Is it going to be a small thing? Will I clear quickly? Or do I need extra help, or is this going to be a mess? Estimate the expected duration of the incident. What is that timeline going to be? How long will we be out here, and how long will we be affecting traffic? How long will traffic be delayed or stopped? Now, you know, we might reroute traffic, we might put some cones out there, but are we actually going to stop traffic on the interstate? In the state of Michigan, if we stop traffic on I-75, we have to notify the state police and MDOT before we stop traffic on I-75. They have to be there, all right? If not, they can write us a ticket for impeding traffic. And towers have been written tickets in the state for impeding traffic. So, if we're going to do this, if we're going to stop that traffic, we need to let the state know before we do it. You need to set up appropriate temporary traffic control based on the estimate. So depending on what you believe is going to happen, you have to set up temporary traffic control. The traffic classifications. A minor incident. Small traffic disruption, small accident, roadside disablement, 30 minutes or less. All right? How long is this kind of incident, and what kind of resources? Is it minor, intermediate, or major? We've got a small collision. All right? Got a little spill, coolant or transmission fluid. All right? Intermediate incidents. Disruption between 30 minutes and 2 hours. They might have a lane closure, road closure, all right? And it requires proper traffic control. All right? Here we've got a vehicle that struck and broke a pole. We've got all sorts of things going on. So, you know, we've got a lot more going on here than we did in the next, or the previous one. What about this one? All right? Minor incident, intermediate, or major? Got an asphalt truck on fire. You can see the fire's already spreading to the pavement. All right? What resources needed? How long will it take to get this thing out? Next. Major incidents. Big traffic disruption, 2 hours or more. Might have hazmat. Might be a fatal motor vehicle accident. Might have extensive cleanup. It's going to require additional and more intensive traffic control, and it's going to need additional resources brought in. What is this? Minor, intermediate, or major? Tractor trailer. This is a big thing in Michigan. This is sugar beets, all right? So we get about 12 of these a year during sugar beet season because the farmers get their trucks out, you know, and they only operate them about 6 weeks a year. And we get a lot of the beet trucks flipped over like this because you got guys driving all day, all night long, pulling beets out of the field. They're exhausted and they're driving and, you know, top heavy loads. So what kind of resources do we need for that? You got to clean up the mess, clean up the beets. Do we have a spill? Get the truck flipped over, get the intersection cleaned, get traffic restored to normal flow. Next. So the incident severity depends on how we're going to park and what we're going to do at the scene. On a minor incident, you're going to park in the front or rear as needed. You're probably going to be the only one out there on a minor incident unless it's a minor crash where the police are going to direct you. If you're parking on a minor incident, get to where you need to be. Get to where you're going to be able to work. Intermediate incident, you should probably park in front and clear of the scene and other responders. You want to be in that shadow area if they have traffic control already set up. If it's going to be that type of incident, a lot of times police or fire have already got cones out and have a temporary traffic zone set up. Major incident, you really need to be directed by the incident commander. Probably way far in front of the scene or where other responders are directing you. How do I park my truck? Am I the only responder? That's going to be about 80% of our incidents that we do on the highway. We're going to be out there alone. Is it a service call or a tow? Am I delivering fuel, changing a tire? Dave Lambert wants everybody to tow flat tires off the highway. He believes it's a really strong safety initiative not to change a tire on the highway. I haven't completed my thoughts on that yet. Is it faster to get that car mobile and under its own power? Or is it better to load it and then tow it off the road and then change it in the same spot? I don't know that yet. I haven't made up my mind on that. But there's a real strong initiative and push to get off the road quickly and not mess around trying to change a tire, especially on the high-speed side. Do we park in front or the rear? If we know it's going to be a tow, be prepared to tow. Get in front of that vehicle, get ready to tow and load that vehicle. If we park linear and away from traffic. Again, let's not block a lane. Let's not cheat into a lane if we don't have to. A lot of guys I see park the front of their trucks and get their front of the truck sticking out into the road. That just says hit me. You know, if you can avoid that, park in a linear fashion. If you're parking in the rear, park to block. Park to protect and shadow. And park with your steer tires angled and turned. Now I can't tell you that you should always turn to the right or you should always turn to the left because that's going to be situational. If you're working and your truck is on an angle, everybody says, oh, you want the truck to go to the shoulder. Well, maybe not, because we're working by the shoulder. We want the truck to go away from the bodies, okay? If it hits another car, I don't care so much that it hits another car. I don't want it to hit me, my customer, or anybody else that's physically exposed and outside a vehicle. We want to protect the individual. Next. So, if we park our truck in a linear fashion, we're going to minimize traffic interference. The angled tires create a shadow and a safe work zone if we're behind it. And the tires turn to direct the truck away from the work zone in the event that it gets struck. So think about that. You want your tires turned so it angles away from where you're working. Sometimes that's going to be to the left, back into the traffic, and sometimes it'll be to the right, off to the shoulder. But what it'll do, it'll be like a pool ball. Somebody hits something and on the pool table, and what's it do? They bounce like this. And that's what we want. We want the vehicles and the tow truck to bounce away from and not go into our scene. Next. So, is this a protected scene? Linear parking. We've got the sheriff cars, we've got the fire truck, and we've got the disabled vehicle all the way up front. Okay? Next. How do you park your tires? And that's where we talked about wheel position. We want it to go away from our scene. We want it to go away from our people that are exposed. Here we've got multiple lanes. We've got multiple lanes in each direction. And see how the fire truck's parked? His tires are straight. Why? Because if he gets hit in the back, it's going to go straight away from the scene. He doesn't have to angle them. If he angled them to the left, he'd angle them right into the car. We don't want that. We want him to, if somebody strikes that from the rear, we want him to go away from the incident scene. Next. This is a shadow or protected work zone. When the fire guys park on an incident scene like this, They should park and protect that zone. I don't like the way his tires are turned. Why? Because they're going to come into the work zone. It should go right into the curb. Everybody see that? Okay? Not making fun of the firemen, but they should have straightened those wheels so that truck would have went straight in and he gets struck on the rear. Next. Emergency lighting. Everybody know the difference between emergency lighting and directional lighting. Emergency lighting, directional lighting. Four-way flashers, rotating beacons, flashing beacons, emergency lighting. Arrow stick, arrow board, handheld directional wand, directional lighting. All right? So we need to know the difference. Generally, less is better than more. We've always talked about light up the scene, light up the scene, light up the scene. More lights are better. More lights are really bad, especially with drunk drivers and drowsy drivers. They tend to drive toward the lights. All right, so less is better. We want to warn them, but we don't want them distracted so much that they're following right into us. Amber's recommended. I don't know if you paid attention. Look at your fire trucks in your local jurisdiction and ambulances. They all have amber flashing lights on the back of their vehicles now. Why? Because amber has better penetration in all weather conditions than red or blue. So amber lights, they're really important on the rear. And even though everybody goes, oh, you know, they don't slow down for amber, it's still much more visible. Rotating lights are better than strobe lights. The high intensity pulse of a strobe can cause temporary short-term blindness, especially at night. So if you're using an LED light bar or a strobe bar and has a high and low setting, you might need the high during the day but use low at night. If you've got a front and a rear facing on-off switch, use those judiciously. Don't be pointing lights and shining lights at people that don't need to see those lights. If you're on a divided highway, the people coming at you on the other side of the median don't need to know that. All right? Multiple beacons are preferred over a single. So a long bar is always better than just a single light, or a single beacon, or a single strobe, single rotator. Next. Emergency lights are designed to warn motorists for the early stages of an incident. That's at first 15 to 30 minutes. Next. Emergency lights do not provide any traffic control. An emergency light is not a traffic control device. Okay? Next. Once effective advanced warning and traffic control has been established, turn off your warning lights. Right? Think about that. If you're inside a coned off area and we've got good blocking, turn off all those flashing lights inside there. Use the work lights that you need, but minimize the light so as not to confuse drivers approaching the scene. Too many lights can be really bad. Go ahead. Go ahead. Emergency lights don't provide traffic control. Arrow boards, arrow sticks, or other directional lighting do provide traffic control and avoid blinding oncoming traffic. Again, if you have the dimmer switch on your light bars, use them. If you have the front facing off-on switch, use them. Next. Use good light discipline, especially on divided highways. A lot of rubberneckers are coming the other way, and if you can avoid using that, you can really avoid blinding those people and causing slowdowns on the other side of the interstate. All right, part of 6I from the MUTCD are these bright signs. It's hot pink, or the actual name is fluorescent coral, and it's emergency scene ahead. So if you're going to have a long incident, these signs should be put out. And depending on the speed, how far away you want to have that advance warning. Earlier we were showing a video, and they had a work scene, and it was right after a curve. Well, they didn't put the sign before the curve, they put the sign right after the curve. So the people came through the curve, and boom, there's a sign, but we're already in our scene. So it would have been better to have the sign back so the traffic was warned before they got through that curve. All right, the sign, where do we place it? Upstream, and it's used to warn motorists in advance. Thanks. At night, very retroreflective, that shines well, people can see them clearly. All right, what? Emergency scene ahead. Prepare to slow down. Put your cell phone down, put your coffee cup down. 2 and 10 on the steering wheel. Prepare to slow and brake. Next. The ANSI vest, what's appropriate for the temporary traffic control? Again, class 2, at least. Many uniforms are not compliant. If you have a gray, black, brown, tan, beige uniform with just a couple of stripes on them, that's not an ANSI compliant uniform. Okay? You have to have so many square inches of the orange or the green plus so many square inches of the reflective. There will be a tag on it if it is ANSI compliant. A lot of jackets are not ANSI compliant. So before you buy a jacket, make sure it has the tag that it's ANSI compliant. The guy on the left, ANSI compliant. The guy on the right with his turnout gear, not ANSI compliant. Next. Traffic cones. How many people have 18-inch traffic cones? You have to have at least 28-inch with reflective stripes on them, or you can't use them over 45 miles an hour or any roadway at night. If you don't have 28-inch cones with reflective bands on them, you can't use them over 45 miles an hour at night. I see some new tow trucks out there that have got 18-inch cones in them. Throw them away. They don't have reflective stripes on them, throw them away. Why? Because the guy's going to get out there, he's going to put those cones out, and if something happens, they won't pass muster. They will not pass muster. 28 inches, reflective bands, or they're no good. Next. Now the other thing too is if you already have a bunch of 28-inch cones and they don't have bands, you can buy the bands and just peel and stick them. I make my night dispatchers do that. And actually I buy the cones without the bands because they're a lot cheaper, and then I buy the bands separate and I make them put them on at night. They really love me. All right? But I save about $4 or $5 a cone by doing that. So, and then I buy them pizza. So, temporary traffic control zone is the area where we're imposing that traffic control on motorists, all right? It extends from the first warning device to the last device until traffic flow returns to normal. Now, a couple of the handouts that I gave you shows those zones. So when you look at those zones and you look at those handouts, it shows you what the zone should be like. And it shows where advanced warning, if you take a look at that, it's got, and you can kind of follow along right now on these handouts. If you don't have the handouts, I'll send John up with handouts for you, okay? Anybody don't have handouts, need a copy? Can you take a couple up there top, and then Dave way up in the top of this? Take 2 cents. Okay, this isn't one of the diagrams in the handout. So we've got advanced warning. That's going to be where the emergency sign is, and the emergency ahead sign is going to be. Now, when we think about why we need advanced warning, if this is my driver, his headlights are good for 100 feet. Okay? How fast is the driver traveling at 60 miles an hour? 88 feet per second. So he's got about 1.1 seconds there, and he's overdriving his headlights at 60 miles an hour. Can he react in 1.1 seconds? That's recognizing the hazard, taking his foot off the accelerator, moving his foot to the brake, and applying the brake. No, he can't. Next. This is high beams, 300 feet. So what do we have with 300 feet? We got just under 4 seconds at 60 miles an hour. Next. This is the average stopping distance for 30 miles an hour, 200 feet. Next. 305 at 40 miles an hour. So we're right at the limit of our headlights at 40 miles an hour. How many people are driving at night at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour on the interstate? All of us. Okay? And we're overdriving our headlights. Next. At 50 feet, it takes 425 to stop. Next. 60, 570 feet to stop. Next. And at 75 miles an hour, it takes 820 feet to stop. So think about that when you're out there working and those people are whizzing by you, how fast they're going and what that puts you at risk. Next. Single advanced warning sign should be a minimum of 100 feet upstream. Urban areas, 4 to 8 times the posted speed limit. Express or highways, up to a half a mile away. Okay, that's 2,500 feet. Enough to slow them down, at least let them know that something's going on ahead. Next. So, following along, we have our advanced warning. The next is transition. That's where we're going to be placing our cones, establishing a taper. Next. Look at the nice reality here. Or not reality, but, you know, we've got an arrow board. It gives people direction. We've got cones out there. We've got a work zone up ahead. Next. 40 miles an hour, 320 feet, taper, 22 cones. You know, I mean, look at that. That's good direction for traffic. Next. Now, this is the real world. That's ideal. All right? This is what happens to us every day. We've got a couple cones on the taper. We've got a police car. We've got a truck there ahead of the police car. You can see the tail of the police car, and there, my flatbed's right up ahead of there. Okay? And we're just diverting traffic around. Oh, go ahead. All right? If we're going to clear the scene within 30 minutes, this is compliant. This is enough traffic control. All right? We don't have to bring out an arrow board or anything else because we're going to clear that scene in 30 minutes and we're going to be on the way. This is appropriate temporary traffic control. Next. The buffer zone and the work zone. The buffer zone is where we're going to have that blocking maybe crash attenuator if it's a fire truck. All right, next. And then this is our work zone. All right? The fire department always uses a lane +1 rule. They're going to take the zone they're working in +1 lane. Now, generally, we don't have that luxury when we're out on the highway. Again, we're going to be usually working solo. We don't have those, $500,000 crash attenuators. But they're always taking the lane +1 to give themselves a bigger buffer zone. And a lot of times we can work in that zone. Now look at this buffer zone. They've got all the traffic shut down here, and they're rolling traffic, and it's coming right by, and literally, it's within 2 or 3 feet of the EMS personnel, and there's nobody there. Look at the police officer right here. He doesn't have a vest on, and he's the one that's directing traffic through that active zone. All right? Again, I told you, the police and fire guys are fun to make fun of and take pictures of. And then this is our active work zone. This is where we want to make sure that we're protected. And if we're going to come and park at a scene like this and we know we've got to get those cars out, the ambulance is here. Where do we want to be? We want to be in here. So when the ambulance pulls out, we can back in and grab the vehicles and go. Why? We're in a protected shadowed work zone up here. We want to be up in front. Next. And then the termination area, that's going to be where we route traffic back into its normal flow. And again, those diagrams are on those sheets, and please feel free to copy those sheets and distribute them to your employees. And like I say, 50 cents at Kinko's or Copy Master, FedEx, or any one of those places, Office Max, Staples, and make those copies. Next. Now, one of the other handouts, you've got lane identification. Go ahead, run through these. You got left, center, right, and then right outside lane, and inside shoulder, and then median. Oop. So you've got one of those in a handout. They just started to change this, and they want to call this lane 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's going to be a change. So if you're in the TIMS training, or you do a train the trainer, that's what they're going to want to see. So everybody talks the same language when they talk about that. Next. Safe parking. All right. How do we park? You've got fire department in the back with their wheels turned. Now see how they have this? They don't go to the shoulder. They actually go back out into traffic if it's struck. Why? Because they don't want it coming back this way where people may be working. They're protecting and shadowing the zone. Ambulance up front, and then if we're parking, we want the tow trucks up here. Let them do their job, clear the scene, and then we come in next. All right, here we have the ambulance behind. How many people hate the way ambulances park at scenes? They are the worst parkers in the world. They may know how to treat people, but they don't know how to park for crap. All right, they need lessons in proper parking. A lot of times they park in a position where it's hard to get them out after they have their patient loaded. They'll pull right into a scene, and then you've got to back them out into active traffic and try to get them out to, where they can leave. So, if you work with your ambulance company, if you tow for them, work with them. Be part of the TIMS program. Be part of the multiple disciplinary approach to making these scenes better and safer. Next. Now, look what we've got here. We've got upstream blocking, and there's our incident scene. There's our taper, tow truck right here, and they're already starting to clear. All right, next. Advanced warning, way back, get traffic moved over. Again, the upstream block. Go ahead. Now, this is a really interesting scene. We have a vehicle fire over here. The fire department's putting out the vehicle fire. This is a driveway, and when the fire department first arrived on the scene, they didn't park off the shoulder of the road. They actually parked in the travel lane for a parking lot fire. The fire chief got there and read them the riot act and made them move their fire truck inside the scene. And we're here with our tow truck, and we're backed up and the fire chief is just having a fit. Next. And guess what happens? This car, they didn't even put cones across. This car comes in and runs right over the fire hose. Why? They didn't think to protect the scene. They have more than enough manpower, but they're not protecting their own scene. And they're not protecting their own manpower. Next. Again, look how they've got this block. There, guy's putting out cones, but what's he doing wrong? His back's to traffic, all right? But they've got 2 fire trucks blocking, got this tractor trailer, took out a bunch of guardrail. This is going to be a mess. Next. All right, road rage. We all see it. How do we avoid it? By giving motorists good direction, giving them communication. On my cell phone, I have the phone numbers for every TV desk and every radio desk that does traffic reports. If we're out on an incident scene and the police and fire haven't already called in road reports, I call in the road report. Why? I want traffic aware so they can stay away from us and be safe. If I can get them to take a different route in the morning and don't come by our wreck, we're much better off and we're much safer. We communicate with those TV and radio stations, especially in morning or evening when we have drive times, when we have wrecks. Know those people. They love that information. They'll be happy to make that announcement. All right, we're wrapping up. I got 2 things to show you real quick. TRA has 2 great videos. In the stuff that John handed out, there's an order form for them. One is proper dressing for success, good safety attire, and the other is proper parking for incidents. They're $25 or $20 a piece, whatever they are. They're great for your safety meeting. They're about 15 minutes for each. They're wonderful. I encourage you to buy them. TRA also has the traffic incident management stuff on DVD, so you can get that as well. And then there's the vehicle identification, the HATSF incident management, and then some of the road service providers. They're having all sorts of informational stuff out there. Pick up their DVDs, look at the information they have, and take advantage of that. Anybody have any questions? Wow, I was that good? You're 59 minutes late, Nick. No t-shirt for you.
I'm sorry.
Up front, Tow Times, who sponsors me, had these shirts made. Move over for tow trucks, it's the law. We're going to do some other ones next year for the kids. It's going to say, move over, I want my daddy to come home. I want my mom to come home. All right? We don't have kid sizes, unfortunately, this time through. But, this may be just a feel-good thing for us, but with 54 people already killed this year, we need to be aware. We need to take the time. We need to protect ourselves. So, thank you for your attendance. Please stop by. The piles are...